friend. Welcome to the Fruitful Fertility Podcast. Do you want to better understand your body so you can get pregnant naturally? Do you find yourself up late at night Googling how to ovulate on your own or natural fertility tips? Do you feel lost on what your next step should be? Hey, I'm Tori, a registered nurse, Christian fertility coach, and your new TTC BFF. When I started my fertility practice, I realized how much the modern medical system was missing when it came to supporting women trying to get pregnant. I knew God had called me to this space to bridge that gap and provide more natural fertility support and education. With time and a little trial and error, I found a foundational way to assess infertility cases and get better results. In this podcast, you will finally understand how your body and fertility work, support to stay off that emotional roller coaster, and a proven strategy to improve ovulation and increase your fertility naturally. If you're ready to get started, drop those ovulation sticks and grab a pen because, girl, you look fertile to me. Do you feel fatigued a lot or really tired? Are you always cold and maybe you're not ovulating or unsure if you're ovulating? Maybe you have these symptoms and you were still told your thyroid labs were normal. All your labs are normal. Well, we're going to dive into that today because there's more to that story. This episode is going to uncover what your doctor missed, what you need to know about your thyroid, and if it is an issue, where you can start and what you can do about it. So make sure you stay to the end of this episode so you can get like the tangible tips, the whole picture, because the thyroid is an interesting thing. It's not something we necessarily think about with fertility right off the bat. We tend to think about like the ovaries, the uterus, the sperm, the egg, and we don't think about how thyroid plays into it, but it really does. It's a big piece of the puzzle, and we don't want to miss that. But I unfortunately do have a confession to make. I'm so embarrassed. I am so humbled. I am hoping that you will love me through this. If this is the first episode that you have listened to, go listen to something else and then come back. Because I am human. I don't know if you guys listen to Michael Todd. He's a preacher at Transformation Church, but he always said that they're a hot church. And HOT stands for humble, open, and transparent. And that is what I'm doing. I'm being very vulnerable. I'm admitting my fault. I'm so embarrassed. But I cannot have misinformation floating around because of me. So I have got to clear the air. I have previously said on podcasts when I'm talking about thyroid that the number we're going for is 2.5. That is the optimal thyroid range for fertility. Well, that is not true. That is not true. I was wrong. So if you are someone who has heard me say that and you've gone back and looked at your lab and you're like, my lab's nowhere near that, and it's led you to believe that something was really wrong, I am truly sorry. We want it below 2.5. We really want it between 1 and 2 is the optimal range. And I'll tell you this story. This is just funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it is what it is. I was making an optimal lab range sheet for my members in Conception Connection so they could take their labs and compare it so that when you are told, hey, your labs are normal, but you know in your gut something is off, that you can look for an optimal range. So there's a difference in your labs being normal and your labs being optimal. So I'm making this spreadsheet, I'm getting in ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, help me outline and build this sheet for these labs. Here's the numbers, here's the ranges I want. And ChatGPT kept arguing with me. This robot was arguing with me like, hey, you don't want it to be 2.5. You want it to be between 1 and 2. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure 2.5 is the optimal range. And ChatGPT kept telling me why it wasn't. And I was like, okay, this can't be right. And then in my like conspiracy theory brain, I'm like, no, this is because this is what Google says. And Google is from the, main conventional medical world that's not right anyways. So I reached out to a friend of mine named Maytini, who is the office manager at the functional medicine office I used to work at in Nashville, and where I did a lot of my learning and mentorship. I worked under a doctor and a nurse practitioner that were wonderful, but honestly, Maytini taught me a lot too. And so I texted her and I'm like, don't we want thyroid at 2.5? Doesn't Dr. Melissa say 2.5? And she was like, no, we want it under 2. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where did I get this? Why have I been saying this? And I also have a big notebook on my counter. My husband makes fun of me because I have so many notebooks and planners, but I have all my notes from like anytime I research, because I research so much. I look at medical studies. Like I truly want to be an evidence-based, not just coming with my opinion, not just coming with something I read on TikTok. I want evidence that what I am teaching you is true and proven and science backed and all the things. So I'm looking through my notes and I look under lab values and it says want under 2.5. So I don't know, guys. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, but that is not, we want it below 2.5. Optimal is between 1 and 2. So please love me. Please forgive me. We will learn and move forward together. Okay, so there's my confession. But now let's get into why the thyroid matters for fertility, because we always want to understand, like, not just that it matters, but why it matters. So our thyroid is important for controlling energy in our body, controlling hormones, and how our body uses nutrients. So if our thyroid hormones are too high or too low, it can make it harder for our bodies to ovulate. Our thyroid kind of tells our ovaries what to do. It talks to our ovaries and says, hey, make this much estrogen, make this much progesterone, so that we have the right balance. Our thyroid also works with other hormone systems. It's also working with our adrenals. And so because it works along with these other systems in our body, that means that everything's impacted if the thyroid's not working correctly. So I want you to think of it like an office where people are placing orders. So let's say there's someone on the phone taking the order, there's someone packing the order, and there's someone shipping the order. Okay, so if the person on the phone is taking the orders and she doesn't take the order correctly or doesn't turn it in, then it also affects how soon it gets packed, and it also affects how soon it gets shipped, right? And you could do that for each person in that line. If someone taking the orders is doing it right, but the person packing it, slowing down, or not doing it correctly, that affects when it gets shipped. So you can see that your thyroid impacts many other systems, and that's another reason that it makes it so important to focus on it and to make sure it's in optimal health. So if you have had your labs drawn and you were told they were normal, but you still have these symptoms, like you're still fatigued, you're still cold, you're not sure if you're ovulating, it could still be your thyroid. Just because you're not in a Hashimoto's or hypothyroid situation doesn't mean that your thyroid's not struggling to get the work done. And that's okay, because we can fix that. We can work on that in very easy, tangible steps and make it happen. So one of the first reasons why, if you've had your labs drawn and you were told they were normal, is because they're only taking your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone. We also want to look at your T3, your T4, your free T3, your reverse T3, your thyroid antibodies. So these are not typically drawn unless you request them. That's why inside Conception Connection, I have a lab sheet that you can literally take to your doctor. So when they want to draw blood, you can say, hey, will you take all these labs? So you're not having to go get stuck again. You're not having to get a needle stick, get more blood drawn, make another appointment, spend more money on labs. You can get it all drawn in one time and actually look at the bigger picture, because all of those thyroid labs give us a much more clear, concise idea of what's going on than just TSH alone. What happens very typically with my clients is they will come to me, we'll do HTMA together. They will tell me that their labs were normal, their TSH was in a normal range, but on their HTMA test, their thyroid ratio is off the chart, meaning that they are dealing with a sluggish thyroid. This is another reason, not that I'm making excuses, but I'm making a little bit of an excuse that I'm not great at blood values, because I work so heavily in mineral levels. And because a lot of the times it doesn't really matter what your blood work says, it matters what your mineral status is, and we can create you a plan based off your mineral status, not necessarily off your blood labs. But maybe that's just an excuse, but it's also a good point, because minerals are the root cause that we're looking at. Depleted minerals are what we need to focus on no matter what. If we're trying to regulate ovulation or periods or support our thyroid or support our adrenals, minerals is where we're going to start. And again, I see this very frequently on HTMA tests with my clients. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I've ever had someone that had like a really good thyroid ratio on their test. So it's very, very common, something we can really work on and optimize to get those balanced hormones and a healthy pregnancy. So what can we do to support our thyroid naturally? The number one thing you can do is work on your nervous system regulation. What does that look like for you? I want you to get really specific. And a perfect example is a client I was on the phone with yesterday. We were talking about this. We're talking about her thyroid, talking about taking stress off her plate. And some of it was work related, but the deeper we got, it was looking more like the stress that she was experiencing in her life was a people-pleasing tendency. The things that she was doing because she didn't want to upset anybody or let anybody down. And so while this doesn't seem necessarily fertility related, I want you to think about how much stress that plays on you. If you are a fellow people pleaser, I know I am, this is something we have to build healthy boundaries around, because that stress, that internal stress of trying to please everyone, to go, 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 do more, not worry about our feelings and what our body needs, but we're focusing on everybody else, is going to deplete our minerals. And we need that healthy mineral balance for a healthy thyroid. So when I say nervous system regulation, yes, this can be things like going for a walk. It can be things like putting your legs up the wall for 15 minutes before you go to bed. There are exercises that helps our body regulate that stress and regulate our nervous system. You can learn more about that inside the Conception Connection if you want to. There's a whole section on nervous system regulation. But I want you to think about for you, what is the one thing you could do? Is it to move your body more? Is it to have healthy boundaries around your people-pleasing tendencies? Is it to have better communication with your partner? Is it to spend more time in your Bible and with the Lord so that your faith and your motivation is built on Him, not an outside source or your own striving? What is that one thing you can focus on this week that will help regulate your nervous system? Number 2, we also need the right balance of minerals, right? It's always going to come down to minerals. We need minerals like selenium and zinc and iodine, especially for a healthy thyroid. We need to know what our calcium level is, because if we have a calcium shell, which means too much calcium, it can make it harder for the thyroid hormone to go in or out of the cell and to be used properly. So minerals play a big part in thyroid regulation. And if you need somewhere to start with mineral support, I would highly recommend Source from Frequence. This is a trace mineral supplement that is also frequency infused, which is really, really cool. But it also has black humic and fulvic acid in it, which is going to help with that really gentle detoxification. So you'll pull out some yucky stuff and you'll add minerals back in, which will be, your thyroid will thank you so much for, because that toxic overload that we experience just from the world we live in, the plastic we're exposed to, the chemicals in our products, the pesticides on our food, the more we can pull that out of our system in a gentle way, the more we balance our minerals and the more we balance our hormones. So that one product, which I will link below in the show notes, will really help you add those trace minerals in while gently pulling some of the yucky stuff out. Number 3 is just going to be to go for daily walks. This hits all the points. This is a nervous system regulator. This is a gentle detox step, because you're moving your you're like opening up that lymphatic drainage. It's also helping balance your blood sugars. I mean, it's just doing so much for you. So start small. If all you can do is a 10-minute walk a day, do that all week this week. And then next week, bump it up to 20 minutes. Don't feel like you have to go all out and walk 6 miles a day every day. Just start simple. Start easy. Start like, I can actually do this in my day with no excuses. Baby steps lead to big change. I even like to say baby steps lead to baby. So just get those walks in, and that's the powerhouse, right? It hits all the points. And lastly, let's do an HTMA. When we do your test and get your results, we can get you a really personalized protocol and the exact steps and the exact supplement formulation you need to support your thyroid and work forward. And another thing that I think is really interesting about doing these HTMA tests is, yes, there's so much science to it. There's the minerals, we're looking at the levels, we're looking at your thyroid, we're looking at heavy metal contamination, all of that. But when I start asking you questions, because it's going to come back to nervous system regulation. It always does. This is when we dig in and it starts turning into a therapy session. I am not a therapist, but I feel like I have become an honorary, unofficial, unlicensed therapist, because I'm like, okay, let's get to the heart of what is really causing you stress. Because sometimes it's your type A perfectionist personality. Sometimes it's people pleasing. Sometimes it's unhealthy relationships with your family. Sometimes it's trauma from your past when you were a child. It can be where you are in your family. Are you the mediator taking care of everybody's family or everybody's feelings? You're taking care of family members and their health while also trying to control other family members and their actions. I see all different situations, and it's never something that is just really obvious, I think, until we start digging and talking about it and root it out of you. So you may know right off the bat while you're listening to this, oh, I know my biggest stressor is the fact that I work in a toxic work environment and I need a new job, but I'm scared to leave. Or you may be someone who doesn't really know. You're like, a lot of times I'll have in the intake form, there's a section where you check how stressed you are, and people put, oh, I'm not that stressed. And then when we get to talking, I'm like, oh, well, we got some unhealthy emotional stuff going on here. And you're actually more stressed than you think you are. So again, this is not, I never say these things to make you fearful, but just to open your mind and get those wheels spinning of like, okay, what is like, let's get out of just this fertility box of like just progesterone and just estrogen and just seed cycling. And let's look at the bigger picture of what is influencing our system on a foundational level. And if you need support and help with that, I'd be honored to work with you. There's a link in the show notes. You can sign up. We'll do HTMA together. I'll ask you a bunch of questions. We'll get to the heart of it, and we'll look at your mineral levels so that we can optimize your thyroid and optimize your fertility. So let's recap this really quickly. Your thyroid matters for fertility because it controls your energy, your hormones, and how your body uses nutrients. Depending on what your thyroid's doing, it directly impacts ovulation. If your labs were normal, but you still have symptoms, it's because they may not have run all the thyroid labs that they needed to run. And if you want a printout PDF sheet of that, come join the Conception Connection. That is in there for you. And then you can hop on the monthly group coaching calls and ask us questions about your thyroid or any symptoms that you're experiencing. And just because your labs are normal doesn't mean that your thyroid's still not struggling to do its job and need a little support. How can I support my thyroid naturally? We're going to work on nervous system regulation. What does that look like for us? Is that healthy boundaries? Is it more exercise? What does that look like for you? We need the right balance of minerals. We can start with trace minerals in our water, in our drink that we add in each day. We can do that with Source from Frequence, which is linked below. We can walk daily. We're going to start small, 10, 20-minute walks a day. And we can also get an HTMA done to see where our mineral levels are and exactly what we need to do to improve our fertility. Thank you guys so much for letting me be honest and open and vulnerable and make mistakes. I love you, and I will see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If this episode touched your heart or taught you something, I'd be honored if you share it with a friend who could use the information too. And if you want to be the real MVP, then would you also take 30 seconds to tap those 5 stars at the bottom and leave a written review telling me what you're loving? It lights me up to know this podcast is really helping you. Don't forget, you're super cute and super fertile, so meet me back here next week and let's keep chatting and learning together.